It is the Practical Prayer Podcast pre-show on the New Thought Media Network. I am Bill Marchiony over here on this side of the Delaware River in Pennsylvania. And that's Carol. She's over on the other side of New Jersey, which is over the other side of the Delaware River and the other side of New Jersey, right next to that other body of water, the Atlantic Ocean. And here we are together again doing the Practical Prayer Podcast on New Thought Media Network. I want to welcome everybody who's watching on the network. Thank you very much for being here. If you're here live, you can put a comment into the comments. That's probably where you ought to put them, right? And then we'll see them and we can respond. If you've got a suggestion or a question or a prayer request, that's a good place to put them. If you're watching the recording, and we understand people favor doing that. I've heard the reason is because you can listen at 1.5 speed and get the entire podcast in a fraction of the time. Whatever. If you'd like to do that, then you can go to bethelight.com, be-the-light.com. The website there's a section on the Practical Prayer Podcast, and you can put in said same questions over there, and we will have just as much likelihood of answering them as we would here live on the network. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to start recording the next episode actually 161 of the Practical Prayer Podcast, which goes out into podcast land in the next week or so. All right, that's enough of that. Yeah. And we just got back from yeah, I did. And I'm in talking mode now because I just led a memorial service on Zoom for one of the practitioners at New Thought Philadelphia, one of the spiritual adventurers who passed away. And so usually when there's a memorial and you're doing something else, there's like time in the car and there's downtime between them. But, you know, sitting in the office just in front of the microphone, it's like, okay, turn that web thing off and turn this web thing on and continue on. So hopefully I'm making sense.
You're making sense.
Okay.
You're making sense. So, you good?
I'm good. I seem to have gotten to the end of that long paragraph. And we're ready to do a podcast.
Just checking, because I know that Carolyn was an integral part of what was happening with your work, and she's really sweet. So,
yeah, we did a dozen times a week. We did one of our 15-minute meditations, which are open to everybody. They're on Zoom. You can Google New Thought Philly and find out how to get onto the Zooms. And she was there. I mean, she was hosting the Zooms, and she did it pretty much 12 times a week for 2-3 years. And yeah, I miss her. And the people who showed up earlier, because I show up right at the top of the hour, the people who showed up earlier miss having somebody to chat with.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're talking about what are we going to talk about today, or do you want to just get the episode started and tell me once we're started?
Well, how much time do we have to talk? We're on the edge.
Whatever. Well, who knows?
I love it. Whatever.
We went way long last week, so and we didn't get in trouble. So and that's what I go by. If somebody comes back after and says, "But you can't do that again," then I know.
Okay, so I just want to talk about friendship and looking at it from two different perspectives.
Okay.
One, I like to say it like this, but one from, let's say, religion and one from spirituality. I don't like to say verses because it's one from looking at it from each side. And I think it is two separate lenses.
Okay. All right. And now you got my gears turning. So, and I'm tempted to ask you about it, but let's start the podcast and then I can ask you about it because otherwise we'll get ahead of ourselves. And Lord knows we know how to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
But we don't have to. So here we go.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
Got another episode of the podcast here.
Already.
And the topic that you have teed up is religious and spiritual friendship. And that is an idea that is very powerful, and you find them to be distinct. So it's not like a friendship is spiritual and religious. It can be a religious friendship, and it can be a spiritual friendship, and there's something different.
Yeah, it is and I'm talking about on a real practical feet on the ground level, because obviously I'm still communicating on both sides of the street. And at first, when I came to New Thought, I thought that I wasn't going to do that, but I can see where I'm led to do that. And I was a guest on another podcast, and I did a lot of listening, and I was listening to the idea that those people over there are not cool, but what's over here is cool. And I thought, like, we're people, with frailties, habits, joys, concerns, and so forth. We're just human, who we're born into religion, some of us, in different denominations, and our identity in a lot of ways are tied up in that. I don't know, I guess on this, if you grew up in spirituality, it's probably the same way. But the rub comes when the twain meet. And I remember a lot when I was on the side, on the religious side of the street, where if people didn't behave a certain way, or if they didn't have the same certain kind of habits, you weren't to even have a meal with them. And there's scripture that was used to support that. If they didn't think the same way, and unequally yoked and all that. And those I used to call headlines, because the truth is in the bullet points. The truth is in the paragraphs. And that's one reason why and here's the other thing too, and I know a lot of people have experienced this. If you have found New Thought or spirituality or whatever umbrella it may come under, your old friends, kind of shy away from you. You find yourself very alone and looking for new friends. And in that interim, there's some questioning, like, I left that side of the street, but I don't have anybody on this side of the street. And I'm thinking, why is that? Because God is love. Everything that we know about spirituality is love, and people on both sides of the street will talk about love. But it seems that there are conditions. Even though we talk about unconditional love, there's conditions. And I feel a little bit not so good about that. I just don't. And we use that to discriminate against people for a number of different reasons, not just color, but lifestyle or life choices, all of that. And so that's my kind of rant.
Gotcha. And what
Yeah.
the question that's bringing up for me is there an assumption in there? Is there a hard, baked in underlying assumption that if you believe the same thing that I believe, then you're going to behave in a particular way, and you're going to say it in certain sorts of things, and the assumption is that we can just assume that this is already part of the conversation without having to say it.
I do think that. Yes, I do. Because and you know me by now, right? Certain conversations would come up, and I didn't agree with a lot of things, and I'd say it, and I thought it
Hmm.
was okay to say it. I thought it was just fine till after I said it, and then I'd find out that that it wasn't good. Like I don't have a lot of problems with what people choose to do with their life. I just never did. And I couldn't see why I should because I'm so busy trying to get my little raggedy life together. I couldn't, I just couldn't see why I should, have a problem with yours. And people did not appreciate that about the openness about me. And let me tell you, I got labeled as a liberal. Oh my goodness. Early
Was this
on
before New
in my,
Thought? Or
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Early on
okay.
in my pastoral career, some somebody just blurted out to me in a introduction actually, she's a liberal. So you're going to have to kind of excuse some of the things that that she might say. And I laughed because I always got the mic anyway, even though people said, well, I was never denied the microphone, but there were often, those disclaimers. If I'm the guest preacher or the guest revivalist, or there may be some disclaimers there about something that I might say. But yeah, so it's 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 not a nice thing. I don't think to make people feel left out because they feel a certain way, think a certain way, and we're challenged on that
Hmm.
as we go through life and don't always pass the test, but just to think about like if a person and this is an Old Testament scripture where it says if a person is lives this way, you don't even want to have a meal with them. That's Old Testament, I know, but some people still believe that. And I always
Well, it's a
thought like
wonderful
how
excuse for only hanging around with people who already agree with you.
exactly. And is that okay? I mean, why are we here? Do you know what I
Well,
mean? Why are
from
we
my
here?
perspective, if it's possible for people to have divergent views, then that's got to be good. Because if we were all supposed to believe the same thing, it would be baked in, and there would be no choice. But we have the
Hmm.
free will and the ability to think differently, to respond differently to different, even to the same questions or the same stimulus. And there's an observation that there's a mindset difference between conservatives and progressives. Conservatives are very much aware of how things have been and the great value that has come about in their current life by things that have happened that have brought this into being. And let's make sure that that continues along. And
Hmm.
the other side of the road, the progressives, are the ones who believe everything that has led us up until this moment has been a blessing and a gift, and it's wonderful. And let's take the next step. Let's
Hmm.
let go of what we've done before and open something new. That's the difference between a conservative and a progressive.
Hmm.
So, and when I boil it down, maybe a little cynically, is that the conservatives have the advantage that they know all the answers. Everything has already been answered, and they know what the answers are. And progressives accept all those answers, and they're much more interested in the questions about what the possibility is for something new. And those are different approaches, and they're both valid. And I understand the importance of both of them. And when I very much consider myself to be creating the next experience of my life, which is inherently a progressive tendency. I'm
Hmm.
opening up to brand new possibilities. And when I come across somebody who is staunchly conservative, I understand where they're coming from. I also realize I'm probably not going to change their mind. And I also acknowledge pretty quietly to myself, they're not going to change my mind. And as they try to, they might embarrass themselves or they might annoy me. but there's much more of a risk of something happening on the personal level than something happening on the level of my own belief.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you said those words change my mind or change somebody else's mind.
Hmm.
Back to the conversation I was having on a podcast, they were really sort of bashing people for their conservative views. And some people had been caught up in that, and then now they're free from it, and now they see a different light. And so now those people on the other side are non-thinkers and non blah blah blah. And I thought to myself, you know what? I can't get in this conversation the way I was asked to get in it because I'm not going to agree with you. I think that for me, I had to earn my friendships back
Hmm.
because I understood why my friends had shied away from me. I got it. You don't, maybe I shoved stuff down people's throat, I'm not sure, but I had to earn the friendship back. And I thought one time it dawned on me. I was having conversations and inviting people to a new thought using the language that they understood in their camp.
Hmm. Yep.
And I didn't realize that I was doing that until I realized I was doing it. I said, "Oh, I could do it and it preserves a person's dignity and respect. Would
Yeah.
always tell my children, don't ever, ever, no matter what, deny a person of their dignity because even if you're right and they're dead wrong, you're going to lose.
Hmm. Or at the very
Respect the
least, you're going to have a big fight.
Yeah, and now you've lost because you're in a big fight. That's not what this is about. It's not always about a win. Well, it is a win. Like, what is the win? Not that I convince you to think like me, but that you and I have the opportunity to think together and welcome each other to think together again and again and again. That's, to
Right.
me, that's the win.
When I have a
So,
conversation with somebody who's got a different belief than I have, um, I, I'm very enthusiastic about discussing the difference and where they're coming from and where I'm coming from, and I do insist a little bit on the ability to make my case, to explain what my observations and my experiences have been along the way. Not because I'm going to convince them that they're wrong and they have to change their mind, but to
mhm,
convince them or to help them understand that there's a different way of looking at the situation that they're looking at. It is not The world is not black and white where this is the way it's going to be and everything else is wrong. It's like, this is the way that we're doing it. And there are a lot of other ways that we can be doing it. I like doing it this way.
mhm, mhm.
And I know somebody else wants to do it a different way. And I can respect that they want to do it a different way, even though I'm not going to try and do it a different way. And I'm not going to say, yeah, let's do that.
I have 3 children. They're all quite grown now. And I remember raising them in a very conservative way, in conservative home and so forth. And when they started to stretch their wings a little bit, I thought, oh my God, I don't want to say that I don't want them to be worldly, but I want them to be safe. And listening to each other was a big thing in the house. So we would listen. And I'm thinking, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Right? you know, I I kind of wanted to do that too. And why don't you go ahead and try that? And then I found myself more and more very quickly being open to new ideas. It's just not guaranteed to work because that's the way it worked when my parents raised me. And I mean, I don't go on to all of that, make people feel like they may have been bad parents or just being open to a new idea. That's
Yeah.
why I love the idea of the name New Thought. It's just a new thought. It's just a
It's,
different way. Nothing's going to happen to you if you give it a second thought.
yeah. And if somebody believes something and they are incorrect, this is how I believe the world works, and the world doesn't work that way, we will find out that the world doesn't work that way. And what will have to change is our desire or our intention, or in some cases, our prayer. I mean, practical prayer works and it changes
Hmm.
the experience of life, but that doesn't mean that it's automatic. And every time we say something, it's going to happen. It's got to be a deep seated belief and understanding, and it's got to be in alignment with that creative power that creates everything. If we're tilting at windmills, then the creative power that creates everything is going to say, enjoy the tilting. It's not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about desire? Mixed up in that. I know for me, making a change was not as difficult as it is for some, I
Mm-hmm.
think, because I wanted to do it. Now, maybe because I had a glimpse of things anyway, but I wanted, and anything that I had to do to readjust my thinking to make it easier for me or to help me understand it a little bit, I was willing to do that. So it's all about desire and not being afraid to let go of an old idea or an old belief. Because, truth be told, a lot of people aren't happy where they are anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
what's going to happen? You can, and I think I don't want to go off on a rabbit trail because I want to really make sure that we get to the point that had me a little wrapped around the axle, you say,
Mm-hmm.
um, how we treat other people simply because there's a difference in their
Yeah.
attitude, even in personality.
Oh yeah.
We,
Well, let's take a break. We're going to come back and answer a very important fundamental sort of question, which is, what do you want? What do you want?
yeah.
But I'm going to pregame that a little bit, and we're going to take a break.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
What do you want? That is a magical and very important question, but it's not the entire question, because what people will generally say when you ask, what do you want, is they'll give you the pat answer. They'll give you the superficial response. They'll give you the thing that they think they want next, but they're not going after the underlying, well, I want you to agree with me. Why? Will me agreeing with you make you any more or less right? How will me agreeing with you change your life, other than you can tick me off of the disagree list and put me onto the agree list? Does it make you righter in order to have me agree with you? Is it possible that you're going to get your way? Is it more likely that you're going to have things go the way that you want them to because I agree with you? Those are more important questions.
Absolutely. I think you're given the idea that people think a little bit further than I think they do. That sounded terrible.
No,
But when
it's true. A
you
lot of people
um,
are at that first level of inquiry. It's like, what do you want? I want you to agree with me. I want you
and
to say that this is the person who we're going to vote for, or that's the way that we're going to live together, or this is the religion that we're going to follow.
and the reason why I was saying that I think perhaps you might give people a little more credit in terms of thinking the second and third level down is because when you agree with me, it affirms who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to feel affirmed, whether it's because they're insecure or whatever reason it might be.
Yeah, I was going
They,
to change the word need there to like, but yeah.
yeah. So now I feel good. And we may not come to any understanding about anything or whatever's right or wrong. I just walk away feeling affirmed and I feel okay. And, now when I see you again, I'm going to feel okay. that's okay. That's okay. But it doesn't make for a very rich relationship, a relationship that is dependable, one that is next level, next level deep. You don't have to agree with me. It's okay. I believe what I believe. If your thought sounds better, um, let's talk about it for a while. Because I mean, I've changed my mind about a lot of things.
Yes, you
But
have, and
it's
you and I are both in the same choir here. So the way that we're able to shift and adjust is different than a lot of people, especially as you describe them on the other side of the street.
it's. I think what I'm feeling is like some people on the other side of the street are not happy, but afraid to make a shift or to even think about a shift. Whatever those, we know all the reasons why that is the case. It's my. I want you to feel okay. If I'm in your presence, I want you to feel okay. So if you are fearful, let's just take a peek together. No
Hmm.
commitment. Just
Yeah.
take a peek. And you don't even have to promise that we'll talk about it again later. Because listen, I'm smart enough to know you plant a seed, it's going to grow.
There are people who are involved in fill in the blank religion, and they believe that people who join them in following fill in the blank religion are good, upstanding, moral, valuable people. And other people are less desirable. And then there's always the question, what happens if you find out that the person that you've been going to your spiritual celebrations with for years and years and years turns out to be running a crime ring? They're embezzling money from the government, or they're hijacking cars, or they're sex traffickers, or whatever, because they're people, and it's not like those people are the people who are involved in that in their day job are prohibited from going to church on Sunday. You watch the Godfather movie; those were all very religious people between the shootings.
Hmm.
What happens when you find out that somebody who goes to the same spiritual community that professes to believe the same things that you believe can do something that's so counter to what is inside of your moral compass? What does that say about you?
I used the term earlier. It kind of slipped out, but I said, I'll try and get my own raggedy life together. So I didn't have time to look at somebody else. And it's like when I look at other people, I see myself sometimes, but I'm well aware of me. I've always known me really, really well, and I've held myself accountable and took that very seriously. Now, let me be honest. I think I'm a good person. Okay, I think I am,
Okay.
but I got some crap with me too, and I've always always known it. Every time I think I get it cleaned up, something else crappy comes up.
Well, and sometimes it's a more subtle, deeper version of the same crap that's been coming up for years and years, or decades, or a lifetime.
Yeah, listen, that's way intellectual. For me, the crap is crap, right? When I
Okay.
see that, whatever it is, it needs to be corrected. I don't feel bad. I feel bad because the one thing that makes me feel bad is like how long has somebody known, you know, that my slip was showing before I did.
And
That,
do they? And isn't it amazing that they loved you anyway?
let's hope so.
Well,
Let's
they're
hope
still
so.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of think about that too. But the idea is that if I see something in you, it's hard for me to get past knowing that I got stuff with me too. So I'd like to get this stuff cleaned up, and it takes work, energy, thought, commitment. So when you say, "What do you want?" Yeah, I want to be a good person. I want to reach a certain level of, this is so corny, like a certain level of spirituality. Let me just put it generally speaking like that. And I can't take certain baggage and crap with me. So therefore, I'm looking I know we're never going to make it, but it can be better, right? So I want to be better and have to unload stuff. And so when I see something in somebody else, they may be trying to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They may be. Or if they are not, they may be where I was before I found out that, I had crap to fix. It's just I just really think about the unfair way that we look at each other at times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
There
I
are
don't know.
there are
I you
people who
yeah.
there are people who believe that I and probably you at this point are going to go to hell because we don't believe the same thing that they believe. And they're free to believe that. I believe they're wrong, but that's one of the situations I'm probably not going to change their mind. I have some very compelling reasons. I have some things in the books that they read from that will tell them that they are mistaken, but they don't like to read those parts.
Mm-hmm.
So does that keeping me up at night? Nope.
Mm-mm.
Nope. Because at some point and I have my belief about the way that the universe works and the way the infinite creative power is sharing itself. And I see it replicated in everybody's religion. That's the really cool thing about being in New Thought is that there's huge value in all of the
Mm-hmm.
world's religions. And it
Mm.
doesn't matter if the people who are following one or another of them uh, don't see it the same way that I do. My really quick elevator speech description of New Thought is that we're the greatest hits of all the religions. And what we try and do is love like Jesus, meditate like Buddha, pray like Muhammad, and believe like Moses, because they all had something going on. And the people who say you got to do what Moses did, Moses was the one, or it's all Buddha, or if you're not following Krishna, that's not it. We've missed the point. We've missed the point. You can't say the people who are on this path are the righteous, and the people on every other path are going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Because those other paths have existed for a long time, and that's a lot of people going to hell.
Well, that's the going understanding, right?
I understand completely. I also don't understand what the caveat, the asterisk is for all of the millions of souls, billions of souls that were born before Jesus was born, because according to the rules, they're going to hell too, or they already went. And it's like, well, that's not fair.
You know what? I had a discussion years ago when somebody gave me an explanation. I just shook my head. I just couldn't. I just had to leave because it was awful. But here, let's focus. Let's look at the term that
You
you
want me to not
use
talk
a
about that?
lot.
Okay. I get it. Yeah, that's just trouble.
The term that you use, the one. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I am hugely interested in comparative religions and all of that. And so I see a lot of the same thing in various religions. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just a different phrase of the same thing. And I think that's a fabulous thing to see. Somebody very close to me that I love dearly said, "So you think that all paths lead to God?" And I said, "Yes." They don't talk to me anymore. So I said, I'm serious. They don't. I knew if I said yes, that was what would happen. But you asked me, so I tell you. So anyway, if there is only one God, and God is manifested in everything in so many different ways, that is so incredible. It makes me want to see more of that, as opposed to it has to be one way. I'm just hugely fascinated by the expressions of God that I see in so many different, undeniable expressions. And, how can you not see that? I know people don't, but
Some people don't. Some people don't. The metaphor, the analogy that comes to my mind is if we decide that we're going to go to the Delaware Water Gap. Okay, the Delaware Water Gap is a thing that exists. It's a particular place between Pennsylvania, New Jersey. We decide we're going to go to the Delaware Water Gap. Well, you're going to look on Google Maps. And somebody else has one of those old map books that has the roads and the locations, and they're going to plot their way using the old-fashioned map. And somebody else is going to use Apple Maps. And somebody else has been there before, so they know you drive down this highway until you get to Interstate 80, and then you head in the appropriate direction, and it will eventually get you there. Religion is where you argue about the map.
Yeah.
You're wrong because you like Google Maps. It's like, excuse me, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about the Delaware Water Gap, and it's the same damn Delaware Water Gap regardless of what map we use to get there. Once we're there, we're going to be having the experience of being there, and it doesn't matter what the map was. Am I wrong? Am I right? It doesn't matter. And it comes back to the question, what do you want? I want to get to the Delaware Water Gap, and I want everybody to get there using my map, because my map is the only map, and if you're not using my map, then you're going to hell. Well, then what you want is not to get to the Delaware Water Gap. What you want is to be right. It's a different question.
Absolutely is. So, I've been known to say, well, can we finish lunch now? Since I don't.
Yeah, we're not going to solve world hunger today. Let's have dessert.
But if we can finish lunch, even though I don't agree with you, and what you, it's yeah. The bottom line is, if you, and people say you can agree to disagree. I don't know what that means. I just know you treat people right, not discriminate against them or hate on them, as the term goes, because they think something different. It's okay. It really is.
Yeah. Well, we have finally managed to loop ourselves back around to the topic, which is religious and spiritual friendship. And the question is, can we be friends on a social and communal and interaction level, even though we have different religions or different spiritual practices? And I'm not going to say that the answer to that is yes, because some people can and some people can't, and it is a very personal question. But if we want to be able to do that, if we want to be able to be present to everybody, regardless of their personal religion or their spiritual belief, well, we can do that too. And let us take a break. And then when we continue, we will talk about how we do that.
You can put practical prayer to work in your life, and Reverend Bill Marchiony can help. He is offering an online class that teaches you to create your own practical prayer in 5 weekly 1-hour sessions. The final hour brings your practical prayer together, anchored in live original music by a notable New Thought musician. Practical prayer is based on the most effective prayers found in religions and spiritual practices all over the world. Use it to deepen ever more fully into the truth of your spiritual nature. It's the core of a transformational spiritual practice that's simple, even if it's not always easy. Reverend Bill is also available for private spiritual counseling prayer sessions. Together, you'll lean into the challenges you've experienced in life and explore the transformation that's possible through practical prayer. You'll uncover old, hidden beliefs and uproot them to make way for the life of your dreams. Everything you need to know is on the website at b-v-light.com. That's b-v-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
And before the break, I said that I'm going to tell you how you can do that, how you can ask that deeper question. And of course, this is the section of the podcast where we always do a prayer. So it was sort of a self-answering question or tease. Or do we do that through prayer? We change our awareness. We change the way we're interacting with the world and with other people and with ourselves and with our divine spiritual nature through prayer. So religious and spiritual friendships, if we're friends with somebody because we go to the same church, that's great. And if we're friends with somebody because we follow the same spiritual path, we are involved in the same activities, that's great. And if it turns out that our spiritual practice diverges, or one of us goes to a different church because we've come to a different understanding, does that automatically discount or negate the friendship? Can we only be friends with people who are exactly like us? Oh, well, you say it that way, then obviously, no, we don't have to just be friends with people who are exactly like us. But the way that we do that, the way that we get to do that, and a very powerful way of doing that is through prayer. So this prayer is to open to a deeper awareness of love. And that helps in this situation because the people who we agree with and we go to church with, and the people who we practice with, and the people who we don't are all people, and we are all part of that same infinite creative power. So that's the prayer. The prayer is to turn away from that circumstance, division, distinction scorecard in front of us and open ourselves to the awareness of that infinite creative power, that one divine presence, the source, the substance, the energy, the love that shares itself as all of creation. Everything is that one taking its own particular form. And it's described in Scripture. In the beginning, there was darkness and void, and God said, "Let there be," and there is. And that's the creative process being described. Another Scripture says it in slightly different ways. Everything is God. And the scientists say in the beginning there was a singularity, a very dense point of limitless matter and energy. And then it, for some reason, whatever reason, we don't know, it began expanding or exploding or big banging. And everything that exists in this manifest universe has come into being by that one expanding and revealing and unfolding itself as its creation. It's not like there is the one plus there's other stuff creating accessories. It is not possible that everything in the universe is a result of the infinite saying, "Let there be," and the unfolding begins, and that somehow doesn't include me or doesn't include those people over there who are going to a different church or following a different practice. There is one. And that one is right here, right now, as and in me, as and in each one within the sound of my voice. We are all that divine presence, that limitless love, that infinite energy, that untapped intelligence unfolding in our own unique and special and specific way. So as we let go of our attachments to things that we thought we already knew, new insights, new awareness, new understandings come about that allow us to experience that divine presence within and that divine presence everywhere as an understanding that love is unfolding through everything. Love is unfolding through everyone. That love is in the person who's sitting in the pew next to me. That love is in the person who's sitting in the spiritual practice across town that I just cannot understand and don't have any idea what they could possibly be involved in. We are all part of the one, each and every one of us seeking an awareness and an understanding of our divine nature. And by being involved in a spiritual practice, we're already on the path. Even the people who are not in a spiritual practice, who don't belong to any religion whatsoever, are reenacting that same creative process. They are that divine essence, even if they don't acknowledge it or understand it or claim it or know it. So that is what I am claiming. An even deeper awareness of love unfolding through and as and in each person, opening to that possibility of each of us engaging with those who are different than we are, asking those interesting questions, being present to people who are of a different opinion without judging them and discarding them as being not valuable or needing to escape them or reject them. We can simply disagree with them and allow that light that we are to shine and acknowledge that that light that they are is shining in its own way. That's how good comes about. That is love unfolding. That is that infinite creative process perpetuating itself into something new. And that's what's happening now for and through and as each of us. And I am so, so grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the way it's unfolding. And I am supremely grateful to be able to speak this word of invitation of opening, and release it into that creative law that creates everything. And to know it is now creating this. And so I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com,
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
That is the Practical Prayer Podcast for today.
Yeah. Did we
Thank
stay
you.
on track? We did.
We
didn't
looped back around. It turns out that the track went around the mountain. But it came back around. It was the same track.
I know sometimes that's good because sometimes we'll loop around and don't get back. So,
Oh yeah,
that's
sometimes
good.
we just wander out into the desert and never to be heard from again. Yeah, I think that one worked.
Yeah.
And it can be very frustrating to be aware that somebody believes something that's not working for them, and it's obvious to us that it's not working for them, and it's like they're beating their head against the wall, and they refuse to stop, and we just have to love them anyway. It's like, well, okay, I hear you and I understand you. I don't agree with you, and I don't think you need to keep doing that. And maybe you can just let go of the part that's hurting you and take the parts that are actually uplifting and proceed with those. But that's my judgment about what somebody else is doing, and they're on their own path.
Well, there's a lot of reality in what you said because people are sometimes not happy, and they say so. They'll express their frustration. You offer them a solution. Now they're more frustrated and they're pissed because so I don't get frustrated anymore. I used to. I used to really feel bad, but I don't. It's like this. I look at it like a smorgasbord. I can invite you to a table where there are many choices. Now, some people will only go to the Chinese buffet and just take the lo mein and that's it. Fine, there's other choices here. You're responsible for that. You're responsible for your happiness in this meal. If your happiness is in the lo mein, knock yourself out.
Yep.
I can do that because if not, there's another burden there. Now I'm carrying a burden for you. I can't.
We did a memorial service today for somebody who very much was creating their life experience. And it was clear to me that there were some things that were not to that person's liking. And it was clear to me that they were self-imposed. And they had been for years and years and years. And so it becomes clear to me that, yes, the prison that we put ourselves into is one that we put ourselves into. And it takes some fearsomeness and some fearlessness to stop doing what we've been doing, stop believing what we've been believing, and open to something different. It's always possible. It's not inevitable, doesn't have to happen, doesn't have to change, but it can. So even though somebody's doing something that's not helping them, as far as I can tell, I don't need them to change for me to be okay.
Yeah. The assumption is that you could be happier if you tried this.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know about all that. Some people are they're comfortable in their discomfort
Mm-hmm.
and you want to stay there. It's like telling that same story for 30 years.
Yeah,
Well,
these
if
shoes
you
hurt every time I put them on. Well, put on different shoes. These are such nice shoes, though. It's like,
Yeah, and so what's going to happen if I don't have this to talk about?
right.
I won't have. It's way too much. I think you said in the very beginning, it's very personal. What do you
Mm-hmm.
want?
What do you want?
Like
And
I
then
have
and then ask the answer. The answer right after that was really.
Well, you gotta assess your threshold for pain, right? I have an extremely low threshold for pain. So if it's making me uncomfortable, I am looking for a way out,
That's wonderful.
right?
It's a
No, it's
very
not.
sensitive barometer.
Listen, I don't know about the wonderful. I just don't. And life is short. I'm just not
Hmm.
going to spend it, crying over not only what I'm not, the unhappiness I'm feeling, but arguing with you. Nah, don't think so. Over
Yeah,
my
life is
thing?
way too short. There you go.
Nah. Mm-mm.
Mm. Well,
Because
Carol,
next thing
thank
you
you
know,
as
it's over.
always. Right, it's over, and
Yeah.
that's all we got. 1,440 minutes a day. We get to use them however we want. There are no rollover minutes. So let us draw this. It's true.
Roll,
You don't
yeah.
get to keep it. 1,440 and done. Start again. And you have another day. Great. You get another 1,440. But eventually the supply runs out. So yeah, carpe diem,
Yeah.
or I'm not going to waste my time. All right, let us wrap this episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast up. It is a minute shy of the hour. We were late coming in, but I'm not beating myself about that. But it's time to go. Thank you as always. Thank you to everybody who is listening and watching on New Thought Media Network. If you have an additional comment that you want to make, you can go to bethelight.com, be-the-light.com, and we will see you next Monday right back here.
People of African Descent New Thought Group proudly presents Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change at Unity Village, Thursday, August 1st through Sunday, August 4th. Some of our greatest keynote speakers, some of our finest musicians and vocalists, some of our amazing and experienced panelists, and some of our fabulous masterclass presenters will be there for you at Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change at Unity Village this summer. Regular registration ends June 30th, so don't delay. Register today at padntg.com. Sponsorship opportunities are available at padntg.com. Volunteer opportunities are available at padntg.com. Go there now, padntg.com.